What's going on, Vikings fans? Welcome on in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, I want to show some love to 5 players on this Vikings roster that completely balled out against the Chicago Bears. But before we dive into that, I went back last night and I was watching the QB school breakdown of J.J. McCarthy and how he performed against the Chicago Bears. And after rewatching the film, he is even better than he looked out there on Monday night. And everybody was criticizing him for his first half performance, and rightfully so. Like when we were watching it live, it did not look good. And then that pick six happened in the third quarter. But back in the first half, the Vikings offense just struggled as a whole. Execution was not high. Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, probably had his worst game as a pro. He was slipping all over the field. He was cutting routes short. Justin School, filling in for Darisaw left tackle, he struggled a whole lot, and even just like the little things for this offense, like the Thielen drop, just not being in the right spot. Like you couldn't really see that when you're watching the game live, and everybody chalked it up to J.J. McCarthy struggling. But I thought his process was good, and you always take the process over the results at the end of the day, and that's also why I truly believe this Sunday night when you're back at home, you're not going to be doing with the crowd noise, you're not going to be doing with that shitty Soldier Field turf. The Vikings offense should have a monster performance. So I know everybody was freaking out over the first half performance for J.J. McCarthy. It actually wasn't that bad. And then once he started to get going in the fourth quarter, we obviously saw him put on that Superman cape. That was, awesome to see. But we'll talk about these 5 players here in a second. But quickly, let me have you guys chime in here. Name a player that impressed you from week 1. I'll give you guys 5 names here in just a second. But you guys get down in the comment section and drop a player's name that impressed you week 1 versus Chicago Bears. All right, let's dive into it. So 5 guys that were turning heads for Vikings fans and the coaching staff in this week 1 matchup. I also love this photo of J.J. McCarthy walking off the field, screaming, "Let's go." You just feel that energy from that 22-year-old kid. But the first guy we're going to talk about here, new addition. Picked him up in free agency, Isaiah Rodgers, the cornerback for the Minnesota Vikings. Now, obviously we know a lot of pressure on him this season. Flores, has been raving about this guy the entire offseason. The Vikings gave him a decent-sized contract, and he's going to play a big role in this defense. And what I love the most out of Isaiah Rodgers, he played 100% of defensive snaps this past week. He played all 67. And what was the big question mark with him? Because with the Philadelphia Eagles this past year, he played really good football, but he wasn't on the field a whole lot. So the question was, could you maintain that production while upping his snap count? And he did just that. 67 defensive snaps, only allowed 2 receptions, 13 total yards, and had a passer rating against of 57.3. So an awesome start for his career here in Minnesota. And, you're going to need him because this Vikings cornerback room, one, there's only 4 guys that play corner for the Minnesota Vikings, one being Byron Murphy, and he was out there for 100% of snaps as well. But then you got Isaiah Rodgers, and now Jeff Okudah banged up. And again, Okudah only played around 16 snaps this past week against the Bears. But Dwight McLaughlin, the UDFA, should get some run this upcoming Sunday against the Atlanta Falcons. Now, we'll see how Okudah manages this injury throughout the rest of the week. He could have a chance to be out there. But if he's not, expect Dwight McLaughlin to fill in for his spot. But again, everybody's freaking out. Why do the Vikings only have 4 corners? It's because they only run 2 corners majority of the time. They have Jay Ward, Josh Metellus, Harrison Smith, Theo Jackson. Like, they got 4 safeties that they really, really trust back there. So credit to Isaiah Rodgers. Looked really good in his debut for the Vikings. But another guy that looked good in his debut, shout out to Javon Hargrave, man. The big fella from the interior. I thought people were telling me this man was cooked. They were saying he didn't have anything left in the tank. They were saying the Vikings overpaid for him. And he shut that noise up real quick here on Monday night. He had 7 QB pressures. Fantastic stuff, Hargrave. 5 total tackles, 2 sacks, a quarterback hit, and 2 tackles for loss. And that 1 sack he had was a huge momentum shift for this Vikings defense because the Vikings finally scored offensively, 17-12 game. First snap of that next drive, Hargrave just schools Drew Dahlman, gets home, sacks Caleb Williams. So that was a great performance. But I'll tell you what, the Vikings up front, this defense is somehow better than it was last year. Like, you go back and watch what Brian Flores was doing on Monday night, and again, you saw the dominance when you're watching it live, but it even looked better when you turned on the film. And the Vikings, even though they weren't able to get a ton of sacks on Caleb, they were number 1 this past week in pressures. They had a total of 30, and they had the only team with 3 guys that had 6 or more pressures, and 2 of them came from the interior. When was the last time the Vikings had 2 defensive tackles, let alone combined for 6 pressures, But they combined for 13 this past week, or this past week on Monday night, and also Jonathan Grenard just doing what he does, 7 pressures as well. So Hargrave looks unbelievable. Now we'll dive into more names here in just a second, but we are closing in on 60,000 subscribers. We just need 293 more of you guys to hit that subscribe button today. So if you guys are new here to the channel, like what we do, want to have more Vikings content in your life, hit that subscribe button today. Once you are subbed, give me a skull down below. Now, before we dive into the rest of the names on this list, I got to give a massive shout out to today's presenting sponsor, and that is Factor Meals. Now, eat smart at factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off and use code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Now, covering the Minnesota Vikings, working at Chat Sports, I got a pretty busy schedule, and I don't always feel like making a home-cooked meal every single night when I get off work. And sometimes all I've got is a couple of minutes. And Factor helps me eat smarter with tasty, chef-prepared meals that are dietitian approved and delivered right to my door. And now with more than 65 weekly meals made for how I live and what I like to eat, I've got even more ways to fit in a real meal wherever the day takes me. And why I love Factor: more variety, more meals. Choose from a wider selection of weekly meal options, including premium seafood choices like salmon and shrimp at no extra cost. It also supports your wellness goals, so even more GLP-1 friendly meals and new Mediterranean diet options packed with protein and good for you fats. So head on over to factormeals.com/VikingsChat50 off. Use that promo code VikingsChat50 off to get 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code VikingsChat50 off at factormeals.com for 50% off your first box plus free breakfast for 1 year. Get delicious, ready-to-eat meals delivered with Factor. All right, let's close today's show out talking about 3 more guys that were turning heads this past Monday versus Chicago Bears. We've got to give credit to the rookie, the young fella on the offensive line, Donovan Jackson, number 74, had an unreal start to his NFL career. And, we kind of saw it out there when you're watching the game live. He was absolutely mauling people. He had that one pancake block on that one swing pass to Aaron Jones, but he looked fantastic. And PFF actually graded Donovan Jackson out as the number one pass blocking offensive guard in the entire National Football League. Not just amongst rookies, but amongst every single guard that played this past weekend. Donovan Jackson was number 1 in the pass blocking department, and he was number 8 overall, 74.3 grade. Still very solid in the run blocking department as well, 18th out of all eligible guards. That was 78 total, but he played 56 snaps, only allowed 0 pressures, and could you imagine if he can just replicate this performance, which was his first start? You're only going to assume he will get better, but if he can replicate this performance for the rest of the season, and he is a home run pick, this Vikings offensive line, no doubt in my mind, will be a top 3 unit. Now, we all had hopes for them to be a top 5 offensive line in the National Football League, but the big question mark was Donovan Jackson. Well, if he looks like a home run, you bring Christian Darrisaw back, you bring, obviously, Brian O'Neill still on that right side, a newly improved interior. This Vikings offensive line is going to cause problems, and that was a big reason why that run game looked so good in the second half on Monday night. Just these 5 guys up front look fantastic, and this is such a beautiful graphic. Like, I might just stare at this late at night and just take appreciation for what Kwesi Adofo-Mensah did. You got the franchise left tackle. You hopefully have the franchise left guard, the veteran center, the franchise right guard, and then you got the veteran right tackle. There are no holes on this offensive line, and you also have blue chip talent. Like, it is very rare, especially in the modern day game, to truly have no holes on an offensive line with blue chippers, because you take like the Detroit Lions. They got a very good offensive line. They got, blue chipper and Penei Sewell, but they still have holes at the interior. Now the Vikings, compared to where we were last year, and now we have 4 new offensive linemen, like, it's truly special stuff. So shout out to the Minnesota Vikings. They did a great job improving that offensive line. It all starts with Donovan Jackson. He looked absolutely fantastic in his debut. So shout out to 74. And now another rookie that we're going to talk about here, Myles Price, UDFA returner out of Indiana. Now, this guy, Kevin O'Connell was talking about him. He just says he's got a contagious personality. He's just got a contagious energy about him. All of his teammates love him. And the fact that he was able to be a UDFA and make this team with a stacked wide receiver room is just all credit to him. And this guy was a monster in the return game. 49 yards on kick returns. Again, solid. Didn't do anything crazy there. Only averaged 24.5 yards per kick return. But the punt return game, averaging 17 yards per punt on 4 punts is absolutely ridiculous. So he had more than 100 all-purpose yards, flipping the field, and a big reason why the Vikings came back in that fourth quarter was because Myles Price was setting them up at the 40, 50-yard line anytime. So this guy's got juice. He's got sure hands, and even after the game, Kevin O'Connell gave him a game ball, and you hear Myles Price yelling out in the background, shout out to my blockers, shout out to my blockers. So you just feel the energy with this kid. So shout out to Myles Price as well. And then maybe another crazy draft pick that's going to work out here. How about a little Jay Ward filling in for Harrison Smith this past weekend? Played some damn good football. Now, it is so funny when you go back and watch the film and you just see how much these safeties are moving around. Like there was one play, Jay Ward, he's lined up on the line of scrimmage and he has to bail to the opposite cover 2 zone, runs all the way across the field, is able to end up making a play on the football. And you saw the athleticism there, but he graded out very well according to PFF. 77.1 overall grade. That was 14th out of all 102 safeties that played this past week. And he also graded out pretty well in coverage as well, 72.8. And with the uncertainty around Harrison Smith, when will he return? Still dealing with that, personal health issue. Hopefully all is good with number 22. But Jay Ward emerging is absolutely massive for this defense because, Vikes, you got 4 corners. You got 2 corners you trust. So obviously Flores is going to run, 3, 4 safeties on the field at every single time. So having a guy like Jay Ward step up in place of Harrison Smith is massive for this defense. And it's also just great to see. We know the Vikings got these blue chippers all across the roster. I also got some guys that, played it over their expectation. And a guy like Jay Ward is a perfect example of that. So if you guys made it to the end of today's show, only real ones watch the entire thing. Just hit me with a skull down below in the comments section. And we'll see y'all next time. As always, let's go Vikes.